Hey, what's up, guys? So I figured I would do a video on the Phase 2 training, which is, the on-the-job, at the division training for Norfolk Southern. So when you guys get done down in Georgia with all your schooling and stuff like that, you guys come back and start your on-the-job training at your division, wherever you're going to be working. For me, it's the Harrisburg division, so that's pretty much all Pennsylvania, a little bit of New York, down into Virginia a little bit, down through Maryland, Delaware, and down to Baltimore, and Jersey. So we pretty much kind of take up the central East Coast area there around Philly, New Jersey, up to Binghamton, New York, and as far down as Manassas. So when you guys get back from Georgia, you're going to have like an orientation day, which is you're going to come into like the headquarters office, and you're going to have a day of just going over paperwork and getting your additional work supplies that you didn't receive in Georgia, which is going to be more like division specific stuff, like your timetable, maps of the yards, maps of your territory, and then you'll get your assignments. For here, you either get assigned Harrisburg East or you get assigned Port Road. I got assigned to Port Road, so I'm assigned to the Port Road branch, which runs from Enola all the way down to Perryville, Maryland. And then from there we branch off and we go to either Baltimore or we go to Delaware. Or you can go east, which is the east list. You're going to be going to Manassas, you can be going to New Jersey. It's pretty much where you're going to be going on the east list. After that, you do some field stuff. You go out to the yards and you drive around and you get orientated to what stuff is, where you're going to be like going when you go to the yards to sign in, stuff like that. So just some, physical characteristic stuff. You'll get your training schedule, which is going to be what you're going to be working for the next 3 months or so. They've been doing, like for Norfolk Southern, they've been doing an accelerated conductor program for Phase 2, which is only 3 months or 90 days. Before, it used to be 6 months long, but as of recently, the past 2 classes or so that have come up through, they've done only 90 days of training. They want to try and turn you around. Now, is that enough time for some people? Probably not. Do I feel like it's enough time for me? Yeah, because I'm just coming up on the end of it. We're about to mark up in a few days. So as you follow your training schedule, you're going to be kind of all over the place. You're going to be in the yard, you're going to be on the road, you're going to be working different jobs, day and night, pretty much all shifts, all 3 shifts you can possibly work in the yards. The yard work isn't bad right now. They're doing between 8 and 10-hour shifts. It just depends on how the night's going and how busy they are. It's nice because then you get to go home, at the end of it. Road work, you're on the road you'll be away for about a day and a half. You'll take a train out, you'll lay over in a hotel for X amount of time. And once you're rested, you'll get called for a train to bring it back. So typically, like on my road rotation, I would run a train out, say like a Monday. During the evening, you spend it mid-morning of the next day in a hotel, and then you take a train out that night and come back the following day. So it's like you're gone for really just about 2.5 days. Yeah, so we're almost done. As you go through your training, you're going to have evaluations, at certain points throughout your training. They'll do field evaluations. They'll just come out and watch you, put eyes on you for a little bit, and then critique you at the end of it, like what you're doing good, what you're doing bad, and pointers for what you need to work on. With us, we also do RCO, which we do the remote control work. So you'll do, if wherever you're at has RCO jobs, you'll do a lot of that. You have to do a certain amount of time on the job for the remote stuff be qualified, you're required 40 hours of on-the-job training, physical, actual, doing the job on your assigned territory to be able to be signed off for the remote stuff. So yeah, and as you go through evaluations, and you get better and you get better and you get better, and until you're ready to mark up, you take a bunch of tests. For me, I had to take about 6 different tests, only because Amtrak was involved, because we go on Amtrak when we go down to Perryville. But you'll take your standard test that they have, which is just a physical characteristics test. It's a test full of questions about where is this milepost and what is it, you know what I mean? Just very specific stuff about the territory that you're trying to qualify on. It's nothing too crazy, if you pay attention, take notes along the way, it helps a lot. Some guys come in and kind of blow it off and don't really think much of it. Then when it's time to take the test, they're kind of screwed because they haven't been paying attention. I actually have a little black book that I write all my trip log information in, and I went to Walmart and got this little black book. And typically whenever I work a new job in the yard somewhere, at the end of it I'll do like a brief rundown, a review of what that job entails, just so later on, if I ever get called for that job, say in like 2 months, I'm like, oh, what does this job even do? What industries does it serve? Where does it sign up at? Stuff like that. Anything specific about the yard that you're working in, stuff like that. But primarily I use this book for on the road. There's a few pages in here of like characteristic stuff, but primarily whenever I do a road trip, like for this example, this was a pretty long night, but write down all my pertinent information, time I went on duty, what the train was, the date, bulletin numbers, specific stuff about the train, and then that way it's an easy reference while we're out working. I have this in front of me and I can just look down like, oh, this is our footage, this is our tonnage, stuff like that. But really I just like to keep track of when we got on the power, when we were moving, when we got clearance out of the yard, when we got to certain areas, if we ever had to stop along the line for something, like say we hit a detector and we had to stop, I'll write that down, where you stopped at, what time it was, what you found, and the time you got moving. So pretty much just keeping track of the times that you stopped, and that you started, why you stopped. Don't really record too much else in here. Like we have signal logs that we're supposed to keep for trainees. That's in a whole different book. But this is for personal use, just in case anybody ever decides to come back and say, hey, why did you guys take 7 hours to make this trip when it's usually made in like 4 hours? Well, you pull out your book and go, well, this is why we hit this detector at this time, and this is what we found, and then dispatch put us into the siding here, and we had to wait for 2 trains to pass us and stuff like that. So it's just kind of a more cover yourself and keep accountability for yourself, because you never know when you're going to need it. So yeah, it's the best little book you can get, and you just fill it out, when you're working. I don't really use it for yard jobs unless it's a new job I haven't worked in a while, and there's specific stuff I need to keep track of for that job, just merely more for reference on that side of things. But yeah, you'll learn all the little ins and outs, and you'll work with a bunch of different crews, and they will tell you 10 different ways to do the same exact thing. So the hard part, I think, during training is that with us, you're on a job maybe for 2 days, and you're on another job for a few days, and you might be on another job for just 1 day, then you go back to another job, and you work with like 5 or 6 different people in that short time frame, and they all kind of tell you their own ways of doing it. And then as you work with them, you kind of do it their way. Then when you work with the next guy, whatever you did 2 days ago with the other crew, you're doing something different now. You're working under this other guy. So as you go, you start to develop your own way of doing everything. Right now, I finally have found my kind of groove as to how I work. And a lot of the crews that I've been on for the past about week or so, when they ask you how long you've been out here, and when you're marking up, if you're pretty close, they typically let you kind of just go. and do your thing. They just are there for questions, and they're just there to watch you to make sure you're not, you know, doing anything wrong, or you're not about to get yourself in trouble, you know, stuff like that, because it's very easy to do that. But they're not really coaching you as much. They're just kind of standing back and letting you do your thing, going through the process and doing the work as if you're doing it, you know, yourself. When you first start training, you're gonna have conductors that are gonna keep you, you know, within an arm's length away from them. Really, the rule is like you're good for like 200 feet away. You're allowed to, you know, you don't have to be right next to each other, but you're allowed a certain distance. You're allowed to be away from each other. But you'll be getting coached more, obviously, because you don't really know what's going on. And you're going to be told steps. Hey, do this next, do this. Now we're going to be doing this. And then as you go, you start not being coached as much, and you start making your own decisions. And it's good to try to start thinking for yourself while you're still in training, and having the opportunity to try to think for yourself and make your own decisions, rather than trying to do it all your first day out with nobody next to you to ask questions. So my thing, like the past 2 weeks, you know, I would just roll with the flow, do what I thought was next. If I had a question, be like, hey, you know what, I think we should do this next, or I think that we should do this next thing this way. And they'd be like, yeah, cool, sounds good, or no, that's probably not a good idea. And you know, they'll tell you why. You'll get a mix of guys that really aren't good at training people, then you'll get a mix of guys that are really good at training people, and I've had my fair share of both. Some guys are more like, they'll just tell you what to do, but they don't really tell you why. Other guys, they'll be like, hey, you know what, we're doing it this way, and this is why. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it can be a tough 3 months, just because you're thrown all around the place, and you get a really good introductory to what the railroad life can be like. You start to feel it physically. The sleep is probably the #1 issue. It's just making sure that you're well rested, all the time, and always expect to be at work for 12 hours and never come ill prepared. I will say that much. I haven't really had a problem with it. I know some guys have, like, think, oh, it's going to be an 8-hour day, and you say you only bring food for, you know, 8 hours, and now you're stuck out here for 12, and nothing's worse than being stuck here not knowing when you're going to be done, and you're hungry and you have nothing to eat. So bring snacks that you can easily put in your pocket and snack on while you're working. You know, anticipate, although I haven't worked a 12-hour shift yet in the yard. On the road, you'll see 10, 12 hours pretty common. But, you know, in the yard, we get about 8 or 10 hours. You do get a lunch break. It's not very long sometimes, but it's enough to be able to sit down and eat and reset and just relax for a little bit before you go back to work. So, yeah. Always keep your rain gear with you. Keep an eye on the weather. You know, anticipate when you think it's going to rain, because nothing sucks more than being out here and being caught in a rainstorm and you don't have your gear and you get soaked and then you're stuck like that the rest of your shift. That happened to me once. That sucked. So yeah, there's just a bunch of different things you can do to help yourself to make this experience not suck as much as it can. Just being prepared, paying attention, keeping an eye on things, thinking a step ahead, keeping yourself, you know, aware. Working out here at night can be very, very challenging and very, very dangerous. And you will figure that out pretty quick. So it's always about keeping your head on a swivel, watching out for yourself, watching out for the guys in your crew, stuff like that. Yeah. So I'll probably do, you know, another video in another month or so after I'm on my own and actually doing a job, you know, go through the promotion, stuff like that. We're almost done again. Only have like another week or so to go, and then that's it. But again, this job is 100% of what you make of it. It can be a really good job, it can be a really crappy job. It just depends on your attitude and how serious you are about doing it. There's so many different people out here from all different walks of life. A lot of guys, you know, it's a job and they treat it as a job and they don't care. They show up, they do their work, and they go home. Other jobs or other guys out here, you know, they know it's a job, but they enjoy railroading. They like trains, you know, whatever. So you'll get a bunch of different guys you'll work with that are a little bit different, you know, on the spectrums. They just want to get the work done and go home, or they enjoy talking about stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna go. Gotta be on in about 20 minutes or so, but I thought I'd do a phase 2 video just to kind of go over what to expect once you get out of the schooling environment from Georgia and get back on the job and going through the training and stuff like that. So until next time, I'll see you.